If you're spending more on chicken feed than you're making from your eggs, stop. Because what I'm about to show you could completely change how you feed your flock, and most people have never even heard of it. Right now, feed is the single biggest expense in raising chickens. For most backyard farmers, it's not even close. Around 60 to 70% of your total cost goes straight into those bags of commercial feed. And every time prices go up, which they have been consistently, you feel it immediately. Think about this. If you're raising 15 to 20 chickens, you're easily going through 50 to 100 pounds of feed every month. Depending on where you live, that's anywhere from $40 to $100 every single month. Over a year, that adds up to $500, $800, sometimes even over $1,000 just to keep your birds fed. And here's the frustrating part. You're doing everything right. You built the coop, you care for your birds, you collect the eggs, but somehow the math still doesn't work. You're working harder, but the profit or even the savings is barely there. So the question becomes, is there another way? What if you could grow your own chicken feed right in your backyard with almost no cost? Not just supplement it, not just reduce it a little, but actually replace a significant portion of it. There is, but this is where it gets interesting. Because the solution isn't something new. It's not some expensive system or complicated setup. It's something incredibly simple, something that grows on water, something that multiplies faster than almost any plant you've ever seen. And chances are your local feed store will never tell you about it. It's called Azolla. Now, if you've never heard of it, you're not alone. Most people haven't, but once you understand how it works, it's hard to ignore. Azolla is a tiny floating plant. At first glance, it doesn't look like much, just a thin green layer on the surface of water, but underneath that simple appearance is one of the most efficient natural feed systems you can grow. Under the right conditions, Azolla can double its size every 2 to 3 days. Let that sink in. You're not planting, waiting months, and harvesting once. This thing is constantly growing, constantly regenerating, constantly producing. And here's where most people get it wrong. They think more feed means more land, more cost, more effort, but Azolla flips that idea completely. You don't need soil, you don't need large space, you don't need fertilizers in the traditional sense. You just need water, sunlight, and a simple setup. Before we get into how to grow it, let's talk about why it works so well. Because this isn't just about saving money, it's about understanding the system. Azolla contains around 25 to 30% protein when dried. That's already higher than most standard layer feeds, which usually sit around 16 to 18%. But it doesn't stop there. It's also rich in essential nutrients, things like calcium, iron, and vitamins that directly impact egg quality and bird health. But the real advantage isn't just what it contains, it's how it grows. Azolla has a natural partnership with a type of microorganism that allows it to pull nitrogen directly from the air. That means it essentially fertilizes itself, no external inputs needed. This is the part nobody tells you. While most of the agricultural system is built around buying inputs, feed, fertilizers, supplements, this is a system that produces its own inputs. Now, I'll be honest with you. The first time I heard about this, I didn't fully believe it. It sounded too simple, too good to be true. I thought, if this actually worked, everyone would be doing it. But then I tried it, and that's when things started to change. Setting it up is easier than most people think. You don't need a farm, you don't need expensive equipment. A simple container is enough. It could be a plastic tub, a small pond, even an old water tank. Fill it with water, let it sit if it's chlorinated, add a starter culture of Azolla, place it somewhere with partial sunlight, and then you wait. Within a few days, you'll start to see it spread. Within a week or two, it begins to cover the surface, and once it's established, it just keeps growing. But here's where most people make their first mistake. They either ignore it or they overcomplicate it. Azolla doesn't need constant attention, but it does need balance. Too much direct sunlight and it can dry out. Too much shade and growth slows. The key is finding that middle ground. You also need to harvest it regularly. This isn't optional. If you let it completely cover the surface without removing some, it can block light and slow its own growth. Think of it like this. You're not just growing a plant, you're managing a living system. Now let's talk about feeding it to your chickens. You don't just dump a bucket of Azolla and expect miracles. Start small. Mix it with their regular feed. Let them get used to it. Some birds take to it immediately. Others take a little time. I made this mistake myself. I tried to switch too fast. The birds were confused and intake dropped, but once I introduced it gradually, everything stabilized. Over time, you can replace 20 to 30% of your feed. Some people go even higher, but even at that level, the savings are significant. Let's do a simple breakdown. If you're spending $80 a month on feed and you replace just 25% of it, that's $20 saved every month. Over a year, that's $240, and that's from one small system. Scale it up, add another container, improve your setup, and those numbers grow. But the real transformation isn't just financial. Before, you were completely dependent on the feed store. Prices go up, your costs go up. Supply issues happen, you're stuck. After, you have control. You walk outside, scoop fresh feed from your own system and give it to your birds. That shift from dependency to control is the real value. And here's something else to consider. Azolla doesn't just feed chickens. It can be used for ducks, fish, even as a soil enhancer in your garden. It becomes part of a larger system. This is where things start connecting. Your waste can feed the Azolla. The Azolla feeds your animals. Your animals produce manure. That manure feeds your garden, and your garden produces more food. That's not just farming. That's a closed loop. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now, is this a perfect system? No. If you're in very cold climates, growth slows down. If you neglect it completely, it won't perform well. And if your overall farm management is poor, this alone won't fix everything. But used correctly, it's one of the simplest ways to reduce your biggest expense. So instead of asking, how do I afford more feed, maybe the better question is, why am I still buying all of it? Because solutions like this exist. They've existed for a long time. They're just not part of the system we're used to. So here's what I want you to do. Start small. Set up one container. Grow your first batch. Test it. Observe your birds. Learn how it behaves in your environment. And then come back and tell me what happened. Because once you see it working with your own eyes, everything changes. And if this opened your perspective even a little bit, then you're exactly the kind of person this channel is for. We're not just talking about farming here. We're talking about building systems that actually work, systems that give you control. So tell me in the comments, are you going to try this or what's stopping you? Because the difference between knowing and doing is everything.